What's going on, everybody? Giofvcks Psych Perspectives, and I'm heading back home from work. And a viewer, subscriber left a comment asking for me to do a video discussing codependency and what codependency is. And I thought, you know what? This is a video that I should have been discussed. There's plenty of videos on YouTube discussing codependency, and you can also look it up on the internet with a simple Google search. So again, you can look it up yourself and get further information and more detailed information from other reputable sources and sites. So when I do my video on codependency, this is me speaking from my personal experiences and what I've researched and learned over the past year and a half at this point, almost. And so let's get into it. Codependency. So basically with codependency, it sounds exactly like what it is. You're codependent. You're not a dependent, you're not an independent person. What ends up happening is with codependency is you basically feel attached to people, and you tend to take on the burdens, the struggles, the problems, the emotions, the feelings of other people. You take on their pain, their issues. You feel like you have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulder. You constantly feel like basically you have to solve other people's problems. You have to bring solutions. You have to help others. You know, even when nobody asked you to help them, nobody asked you for resources or support, you take it upon yourself to bear the burden of others. And a lot of this is trauma-based behavior, trauma-based responses. People who tend to be codependent tend to come from dysfunctional, toxic, abusive, mentally abusive, physically abusive, dysfunctional, toxic, narcissistic households and families. Hence why you're codependent in the first place. Because if you had a healthy, functioning, secure attachment, you would not feel the need to constantly play Captain Save-A-Ho. And that's basically what a codependent is. Now, don't get me wrong. Codependents can be just as toxic, just as dysfunctional as narcissistic, toxic, manipulative people. And in some cases, it's hard to distinguish between if the person is a toxic codependent or if the person is a covert narcissist themselves. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying this to say that the codependent is constantly, the victim, woe is me, they need to be saved. Because in some cases, the codependent is just as toxic, just as dysfunctional, and in some cases can also be considered a covert narcissist themselves. So let's get that straight, right? This is why it's so important to work on self. If you see yourself participating in any type of toxic beliefs, ideologies, behaviors, actions, you need to check yourself as well. Because I also see this often, and even in my own healing, and I'm continuing to heal. This is a continued process. You have to do the work. Okay? You have to be consistent. You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to check yourself, because we all tend to have toxic behaviors and traits that we can all unlearn and heal from. And it's in your best interest to do so you're not sitting up here bleeding on others who didn't cut you in the first place. And I'm not just saying these things to be cliche. I'm being honest off of lived experiences. Get your own insecurities in check so you're not sitting up here dumping baggage off on other people who didn't do anything to you. And if you haven't noticed, I don't know what it is, but we tend to hurt folks that didn't hurt us. And then the people that hurt us, we're constantly okaying and justifying instead of holding them accountable. So make sure you're not cutting and bleeding on other folks, okay? But back to being codependent. In my experiences with being codependent, a lot of this stems from childhood trauma and abuse. When I look at my upbringing, speaking on personal experiences now, living with my grandparents, particularly with my grandmother, she was very codependent in her relationship with my grandfather, and very toxic and abusive in her own way. And this isn't to take away from what my grandfather said and did, because he was very toxic and abusive as well. But looking back, Granny likes to play what? The martyr. And what is a martyr? You're constantly self-sacrificing when you don't have to. And then in many cases, toxic people will play this martyr position and make it seem like they can do no wrong and they're always helping others, when really this is a way to deflect from their toxic behaviors. Look at me. I'm sacrificing. I'm giving. I'm loving. I give and give and give. Nobody helps me. It puts them in the damsel in distress role instead of taking ownership and accountability that they allow themselves to be used and abused. And then oftentimes nobody asked you to do what you're doing. You took it upon yourself to do this. And this is where, yes, you can be codependent and heal, but also take ownership and accountability. You're putting yourself in these situations, right? So on a personal experience, me being transparent, when I look back at the toxic relationships and behaviors that I have participated in and willingly participated in, again, take ownership, take accountability, I was giving and giving, and nobody asked me to do any of these things, so I didn't have to give you shit. I put myself in a situation to be used and abused because I didn't have proper healthy boundaries, and I continued to let myself be played when I saw the red flags and I saw this person's behavior over and over and over again. And I'm like, I kept putting myself in a situation to be lied to be gaslighted, to be manipulated, to be used and thrown away like trash when they no longer needed me, aka being discarded. Okay? I've since grown from that. Do I still have moments where it's like, oh Lord, here go that codependent? Yes, I still have those moments. However, I have gotten way better at early recognizing the red flags early on, putting up those healthy boundaries, and backing away, exiting stage left. Okay? So again, to go over codependency, you're constantly overgiving, you feel attached to people, you feel like you have to save people, and a lot of this also is coming from childhood trauma. And also, to bring up childhood trauma real quick, those of us that have abandonment issues tend to be what? Codependent. Codependent is your friend because 9 times out of 10, your parents abandoned you. They were deadbeats. And in my case, both of my biological parents were basically deadbeats. Yes, my mother was in my life, but she did not have custody of me, and she was in and out of my life. I would see her for a few months, and then I would go up to 6 months to a year without seeing her. So that codependency and that fear of being abandoned and feeling like I have to prove my worthiness, show that, hey, if I can get you to love me and care about me, then you won't leave me like my mom and father did, right? So this is what happens to a lot of people, unfortunately. It's very, there's always car accidents and issues, even when it's a good day out, and it's just always shocking to me when you see it. Anyways, hopefully they're okay. Send them good vibes. But it's just, you constantly are going after people that you have to chase, that you have to do. It's always one-sided. You're always giving and giving and giving, and the other party or person is always taking and taking and taking. That's a codependent issue. This is why counseling, therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, DBT, is so greatly needed in our communities. We need access to more mental health resources and services. We need universal health care ASAP. We need it greatly. And to be fair, we need more black and brown people of color, going into mental health, being counselors, being therapists, being psychiatrists, being psychologists. We need this, being mental health practitioners. We need more black people, more brown people, more people of color, more LGBTQ+, more women, more lower class, working class people in these professions, so we can actually get the resources and services from people that can actually relate to us. So I do agree with that segment. Hopefully this video can be of help for those that want more information on codependency. And I am going to leave some links in the description box, if not the comment box, for those of you who want more information on codependency and on different types of therapy and counseling resources. Hopefully this can be of assistance to someone watching. Anyways, thank you for suggesting the video and leaving that comment. I hope you all are good and safe, sending you positive vibes and love, and you have a good night.